Hello, my name is Colin Thom. I'm a Senior Research Associate at University College London, and I'm here with Dr. Adriano Aymonino to tell you about our new collaborative project to create an open access digital edition of the Grand Tour Letters and Writings of Robert and James Adam, the leading neoclassical architects of the late 18th century. They were born the second and third sons of William Adam, Scotland's leading architect of the early 18th century, in whose office they received their early architectural training. Their grand tours were financed from the profits of this family firm, with the intention that a systematic study of Roman antiquity and Italian classical architecture would augment and expand the scope of the practice, bringing fresh architectural ideas. But in the end, the two brothers decided to pursue their own careers in London, with spectacular results. Our aim with the project is to create a digital critical edition of all the brothers' Grand Tour correspondence, to be hosted on the website of Sir John Soane's Museum in London, where the collection of 9,000 or so Adam office drawings is held, which includes their Italian travel drawings. This will allow us to establish useful links and a dialogue between these valuable written and visual sources. Scans of the original letters will be made available online, alongside new and accurate transcriptions, accompanied by a scholarly apparatus of notes, contextual essays by the project leaders, a full bibliography, and reference material. Our work will build on John Fleming's seminal publication, Robert Adam and His Circle in Edinburgh and Rome, which appeared in 1962, soon after the largest collection of letters was discovered, and which is still a masterpiece in terms of narrative history. But Fleming was selective in his use of material and chose to emphasize the social aspects of the Adams activities, so that the bulk of the collection and many important facets of the brothers' Italian tours remained to be investigated and understood. These letters are fundamental to our understanding of Robert Adam's development as an architect, of his transformation in Rome in the 1750s into a designer of international significance. His letters home to his family explain at first hand his vision of architecture at a time when he was just beginning to formulate ideas about how his art and career might develop. They also tell us much about the context from which his fashionable neoclassical style was to evolve, about its birth amid the remains of Rome's ancient grandeur. He describes his devotion to study and his architectural re-education through intensive lessons in drawing and in the appreciation of Rome's built environment, under established neoclassical artists like Charles-Louis Clericeau and Giambattista Piranesi. Few other experienced architects in their late 20s would have been willing to learn to draw again, as Adam did. Both Robert and his brother James, who followed him to Rome on his own grand tour in the 1760s, also became great connoisseurs and collectors of art and antiquities. The drawings, paintings, sculptures, and architectural fragments that they commissioned and collected in Italy were brought home to Britain as a visual storehouse of reference information for their architectural practice. They also became successful dealers in antique statues and casts, mosaic tables, and other artifacts, which they purchased in Rome for their architectural clients, adding the final touches to the schemes of interior decoration. The letters also shed light on other important figures whom the Adams encountered in Rome, and on the Roman political milieu of the time. For instance, the papal courts of Benedict XIV and Clement XIII, the exiled Stuarts, and the activities of leading diplomats and cardinals such as Cardinal Albani. The correspondence also gives informative descriptions of the social and material life of mid-century Italy, the religious festivities, the carnival, and the day-to-day practicalities of the foreign communities of travellers residing in the papal capital. We have created a website, adamgrandtour.online, to publicise the project, which is still in the early stages of letter transcription. And we're asking anyone with any information that might be of interest to us, especially about any letters that we might not be aware of, to contact us at editors@adamgrandtour.online. And as you can see at the foot of the screen, we have the support of several institutions, but especially the Paul Mellon Centre for Studies in British Art, which has given us a generous project grant towards the construction of our database. But I must add, we're still keen to find further financial support. Thank you, and I'll now pass you on to Adriano for the rest of our presentation.
The first half of the presentation, and now I would like to bring you back home, as it were, so to see how the principles and sources that Robert Adam and then James Adam had gathered in Rome were used when back in England. So when Adam returned in 1758 and started his career and established his office in London. What he brought back from Rome was a huge repertoire of drawings and prints after antique details. So a huge museum on paper of ceilings, sarcophagi, friezes, statues in the round, grotesque decoration after the antique. And it is exactly this paper museum that actually guaranteed his quick success with the British clientele. Why? Because actually Adam could show immediately his true style of antique decoration, as it called it, to new patrons, fashionable patrons who actually wanted to have their houses renovated as Roman houses in Britain, as classical houses in Britain, going back to the original source rather than proposing what the previous generation of late Neo-Palladian architects could supply, i.e. mainly Renaissance details from Palladio, Serlio, Scamozzi, Vignola, etc., etc. And you see that many of these drawings today are at the Sir John Soane Museum in London. The first, one of the earliest actually places where he could apply his new style of antique decoration on a monumental level, and hence apply the modus operandi and compositional logic that he had learned in Rome, is Sion House. And with other houses of the same period, Sion really constitutes the first great interior renovated by Adam between 1760 and 1768 for the first Duke and Duchess of Northumberland. And Sion is a wonderful lens through which to understand the Adam language as a whole, and in which to understand how actually he really put in practice his Roman years in London. Especially, it can also be understood in many ways as a physical expression of what he learned from Clericeau and especially from Giovanni Battista Piranesi. The outside of Sion was left almost untouched, so you see what it is substantially a 17th century facade, but the interiors were renovated in an outstanding, innovative way by Adam. You see here the view of the hall and the view of the so-called vestibule, where actually he could apply his manifold principle of citation from Roman sources, so that Sion House could be transformed into a suburban Roman villa, a villa suburbana, on the example of, for instance, Pliny the Younger villa at Laurentium, so that the first Duke of Northumberland could fashion himself as a Roman senator in this setting. Everything is, in a way, everything plays on citations from architectural, sculptural, and decorative sources, which he brought back from Rome. You see here, for instance, in the hall you have the Roman Basilica. In the vestibule you have the elevation of the Arch of Constantine. Here you have a wonderful bronze cast of the Dying Gaul in the Capitoline Museum, and the Apollo Belvedere in plaster. So all these sources were brought together in order to recreate Rome on the British soil. In terms of interior decoration, all the decoration of Sion, but this is applicable to many of Adam's interiors, Kedleston, Osterley, etc., etc. All the decorative elements were based on these huge collection of drawings and especially prints that he had brought back from Rome, and this is just a jigsaw puzzle of sources that he used at Sion. In some of the rooms, and I'm moving quickly through the house, so I'm leading you from the hall and the vestibule towards the final room, which is the long gallery renovated by Adam around 1763. In many of these rooms, all these sources were used in a very consistent way. So actually also the iconographical consistency was faithfully applied to some of these rooms. That kind of iconographical consistency that Adam had learned in Rome, looking at, for instance, late Baroque and early neoclassical frescoes. The long gallery, and I'm focusing only on this room today, was renovated by Adam and the first Duke of Northumberland as a Roman columbarium, so as a Roman tomb, because Sion can be considered as a collection of Roman architectural typology, from the Roman Basilica, the Arch of Constantine, the Roman Bath, and finally a Roman columbarium. In order to create a Roman columbarium, Adam resorted to some of the most famous archaeological publications on Roman sepulchres and tombs, especially these two, the Antichi Sepolcri and Le Pitture Antiche delle Grotte di Roma, published by Giovanni Pietro Bellori, the great art historian and antiquarian, the Vasari of the 17th century, and his faithful engraver Pietro Santi Bartoli. These two books were used by architect and patron in order to structure the compositional logic of the elevation of the long gallery, but also in terms of figurative details like this genius holding garland, which recurs on as an acroterium of the pediment of one of the door, etc., etc., etc. So these written and figurative sources were used in order to faithfully trying to recreate ancient Roman architecture and decorative typologies in a suburban villa in England. What is quite extraordinary, and also this is found in many of Adam's houses, is that these books, so Bellori and Bartoli Antichi Sepolcri, as you can see here, the Sepolcri dei Nasoni, but also the Immagini Illustri of Bellori, etc., etc., were kept within the walls of the Long Gallery itself, because the Long Gallery was also the place where the books of the Duke were kept. The library of the Duke was kept in the Long Gallery at Sion. Hence, this is an extraordinary example of an architectural space that contains in itself the sources of its own decoration, so that these sources could be opened by the patron in order to show the compositional logic and the antiquarian sources of the decoration. Being this a columbarium, it's a space that consistently, and I cannot go into details, but each detail in this gallery refers to death, memory, and oblivion. And all the different elements are summoned together in order to conjure up these theme. Just to finish on one of the details of this gallery, and also to comment upon the level of sophistication and complexity of some of Adam's interiors, which are all based on, in a way, knowledge that he had gathered in Rome, and for which, of course, the knowledge of the letters is absolutely essential. I would like to show you only one of the bays of the library on the south end of the gallery. This is actually not a library. It's a gyp door, which, if open, leads you towards the garden. Hence, being a gyp door, these are fake books. Only the spines of the books are displayed here. And being a fake library, what they did, the Duke, Adam, also probably with the help of a great antiquarian, the Reverend Thomas Percy, was the tutor of the son of the couple. They actually populated the spines of the books with a library of great lost books from classical antiquity. A biblioteca libri deperditi, as is written in the inventory of the library in 1768. You have all the great books that actually had been lost by then, but had been handed down to the Renaissance and the age of the Enlightenment through other sources. You have the Oracula Delphica, you have Varro Romanarum Romanarum Antiquitatibus, etc., etc., etc. So an Herculean effort of antiquarian knowledge in order to populate a jib door with a fake library. And being this space dedicated to death, oblivion, and memory, this is, in a way, a perfect example of how the antiquarian knowledge was used consistently in order to create something so specific and so complex as this Biblioteca Libri. So just to conclude and sum up, it's this project actually is absolutely crucial in order to understand the modus operandi, the compositional logic, the level of antiquarian knowledge of all of Adam's creation, but also to understand actually that rich and complex environment of Rome in the 1750s, which de facto actually created the basis for the diffusion and the foundation of the neoclassical language, or as it was called in the 18th century, the true style of architecture and decoration. Thank you very much.